Nigerian-based mobile infrastructure company IHS Towers has raised over $1 billion in the past year to fund expansion across the African continent. Joining us now on the line to explain more about the funding and the future projects is Issam Darwish. He's the chief executive of IHS, which is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Issam, I was having a look before we go into our discussion at your stock a little earlier, and the market capitalization about 7 billion naira, 420 million rands. Is that accurate?
Yes, but you need to realize that the Nigerian subsidiary of our holding is the one that is listed, and that is something that we did 3 or 4 years ago before we embarked on our expansion. Our holding basically is not listed. It's not listed. Our holding owns a controlling stake in our Nigerian entity, and of course 100% of our other subsidiaries.
Thanks for clarifying that. Because if you've raised so much equity, one would have thought that the shares would be a snip if they comprise the whole company. But the clarification is good. Perhaps you could give us some insights. There used to be a company listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange called African Cellular Towers that was a spectacular failure. You, however, have managed to go onward and get stronger as you continue. What has been the difference, perhaps, in your approach and that old competitor?
Well, I think we have several things that goes our way. First, the tower business or the sharing or the colocation industry in Africa is largely unique because it is not really a straightforward operating model. While in the U.S., a tower is a straightforward business, it's more or less a real estate play because once you have the tower, there is nothing much to be done. You buy power from the grid. You don't really need to secure the place, etc., etc. The logistics that goes behind that is not complicated. In Africa, it's quite a challenge. In Africa, almost most of the African jurisdictions we operate in do not have reliable power supply. So this means you need to install a mini power supply system, actually a proper power supply system comprising typically of generators, solar panels, deep cycle batteries, etc., etc. And then you have to secure the place, and you have to have a logistical human network behind that to fuel the generators, to maintain the solar systems, and then you have to tackle the local environment. And unless you are quite able in doing that, an investment in that field will definitely fail.
So the energy and security sides of it would give you, well, perhaps an advantage if you were to try and export your intellectual capital elsewhere in the world.
Sorry, I did not get that question.
Well, what you were saying to us is that there are energy and security challenges on the African continent. And my question would be, there's plenty of work in Africa, but does it also not open up opportunities elsewhere in the world?
Well, it does, but you know, we have 54 countries in Africa, I mean, many of which are already opening up to our business model. Also, at the same time, the big leading partners or players on the continent, MTN, Orange, all these guys have announced and have clearly have embarked on a tower commercialization strategy. So there is enough work for us in the next 2-3 years, we believe, for us to focus on Africa before we start tackling other environments.
How rapidly is your market growing? Well,
I can tell you our balance sheet have almost been tripling every year over the past few years. I think it's going to continue on this path for the next few years,
and
probably 2 to 3 years.
Your balance sheet today, after the $1 billion that you've raised, is that the total balance sheet, or is it even bigger?
Yeah, part of that is, of course, debt. Part of the $1 billion we've raised, it's actually $1.04 billion. Part of that $1.04 billion is debt, roughly a little bit less than half, maybe 40%. But our balance sheet is today close to $1 billion.
Well,